Kendall, keeping up with the portal talk, what are some positions that you could see Shane Beamer in South Carolina going after, offensively or defensively?
Well, we'll start with the offensive line. There's a name that's now new in the portal as of today, Matthew Bedford out of Indiana. He's an offensive lineman. It's interesting because during his recruitment process, it was actually during the Will Muschamp era because he has 1 year of eligibility left. South Carolina was kind of brought in later during his high school recruitment process and tried to target him and go after him, and he ended up going to Indiana to play for the Hoosiers. He's now entered the portal, like I said, with a year of eligibility left. So I could see them going for a guy like him. He's been around at different spots on the offensive line. My parents went to Indiana. Joe, you're an Indiana guy, so yeah. I had the chance to watch the Hoosiers this year a lot. It was an interesting season, to say the least. But he was one of the brighter spots of that team and a very interesting target, I think, for the portal. So as of today on December 1st, that's kind of the first name that comes to my mind. Yes, you think about the offensive line for sure when you think about problems from this past year. Now, you have younger guys that are going to continue to develop, and South Carolina has done a good job of recruiting at the high school level in terms of the offensive line. But you can't always expect your freshmen to come in and even sophomores and make huge impacts. We did see that this year with Trevon Ball and Tree Babalade, but those were kind of unique situations. So offensive line, something that South Carolina definitely needs to go after. Your receiver room continues to thin and thin and thin. So you would hope that South Carolina looks kind of over in that room. And then quarterbacks as well. Like, yeah, you're counting on Lenora Sellers to be your guy next year. You're going to bring in Dante Reno, who's a great ad for South Carolina, but you're losing Tanner Bailey, which I think is a hit if you're South Carolina, because I would have considered him probably the guy who was going to be the backup third string next year. So you lose him. Colton obviously didn't get a ton of opportunities, but still a body that you're losing in that quarterback room. So for me, those are the three main position groups that come to mind on the offensive side of the ball. And then defensively, there's a lot of places to look. If you're South Carolina, you can always bulk up that defensive line. And we saw a ton of improvement in South Carolina's defense towards the end of the season. But you can never go wrong being good on a defensive line, being good in the trenches. And I think that's something South Carolina will consider as the transfer portal continues to gain names and they continue to go after them.
Yeah, absolutely. The D-line is one I'm also looking at. And then the running back room. I think, there are a couple guys in the portal right now. One particular guy I'm looking at, Chris Tyree out of Notre Dame. He's a guy that you can convert to play running back, started at running back for Notre Dame, and then obviously Audric Estime came in and took over that room. But Chris Tyree been playing wide receiver. Wide receiver, you still need depth there because you're losing Omega Blake as well. You can get a guy that can play them both. In the SEC, he's played a lot of big-time football for the Irish, so be on the lookout for Chris Tyree. But running back is something, even with Daniel Hill potentially coming to South Carolina, there are still things that are left to be decided for Daniel Hill, but you would expect, or at least hope to expect, to get a guy like that. Chris Tyree would make a very big difference in terms of depth in either of those two rooms, so be on the lookout for that. Or just, and I haven't really looked in terms of who all is in the portal in terms of running backs. I think a lot of star guys are kind of waiting a little bit to kind of see who else goes into the portal and who all needs running backs as well. So, but running back is one position I'm looking at first. Quarterback as well, Kendall. I could see them adding a veteran guy. KJ Jefferson was brought up. I'm not sure if KJ Jefferson's necessarily the man. He would certainly compete for the job with Lenora Sellers, but I would think Lenora Sellers would win that job, or you would want him to win that job if you're South Carolina. I don't know why you would start a KJ Jefferson midway through the season to have him, eventually turn over the reins to Sellers. I would much rather have Sellers just start the year off and learn and grow. It's his sophomore season. Have this season to grow. Let your other freshmen grow. You've got the Great Wall coming in as well at the offensive line, Cam Pringle, Josiah Thompson. Kendall, you brought up the offensive line. I could see them going after another veteran. You brought up the guy from Indiana, very talented kid. Could see them attack him as well. But defensively, I think you're pretty much set in your defensive backfield. You've got a lot of studs there. Your linebackers are set, Grayson Howard and Stone Blanton coming back, but you could also use some more depth there. You've got Jerron Willis coming up, but defensive tackle and edge are the ones you want to look at. Dylan Stewart coming in, so that's exciting. I could see them adding a veteran edge to bring up him. So Kendall, anything else before we wrap things up on the transfer portal talk? I know we've been over a lot. The 2024 recruiting class also coming in is very good. We can get to them too if you wanted.
Yeah, Elijah Green, running back in the transfer portal now out of North Carolina. So that's another name to keep an eye on. And then Jonathan Mendoza from Yale, an offensive tackle. I bet Dante Reno is on that one. So we'll see what happens. GamecockCentral.com is definitely the place to go. There's certainly to be more names announced over these next couple of days that we probably won't even get to during the show, because in this time, we don't quite know what's going to happen in the next 2 days. So check out GamecockCentral.com. Our social media is at Gamecock Central, and our whole crew over there will keep you posted left and right on everything that you need to know. I don't do the hard work. They're just over there working incredibly hard in Columbia, and I get to come on and talk about it here from